I'm super interested in like, this where you were before this as property manager and just with the corporation. What was your like day to day like job description? Like what were you doing? Like as far as like were you were they giving you the people that you needed to place or you had to do that yourself? I mean, can you just explain a little bit of the day to day for that job?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of why I enjoyed it so much is every day did look different. It was not a 9 to 5 kind of job. It had more of a 9 to 5 aspect than traditional real estate, but it was, you were still handling things as they needed to be handled, and there was quite a lot of variation in that. But really the core mission or drive of that. And I wound up going and acquiring a franchise with a company called Avenue West, which did it in other parts of the country.
Mm.
Because I knew getting into it, I didn't know corporate housing. I didn't know the business.
Mm.
I didn't have the systems. I certainly could have learned how to do it, but I believe going with a franchise system has probably cut the learning curve by a good 5 years. And so what we would do that was unique in the corporate housing space is we would find individual property owners who either had condos, which condos were usually preferred, or
Mhm.
single family homes. We would ensure they were furnished to the correct standard. I had experience to do that. And then we would rent them short term, fully furnished to the company. Even though we would vet the unique individual occupying it, it was the company that was financially responsible. You were usually working with a third party like an HR manager or a
Mm.
mobility manager at the company, or maybe one of the big ERCs, which are employee relocation
Mm.
counselors. So companies that specialize in that, they do every piece of the relocation. We would be considered just one vertical, just one, that temporary housing piece.
Now, you also took care of Nick's rental, one of his rentals up in our above our building, our office, right?
Correct, yeah, and at some point, I mean, we had been up around a dozen units in Portland at some point. There's always a certain amount of ebb and flow at time. So, yes, Nick's unit was used for corporate rental, like most of the units in Portland did very, very well with that model, in part because we had the right framework in Portland with that 31-day rental minimum. That would
Right.
have been a really key driver to success. You can't
Oh,
turn everything into corporate housing or some like most niches, right? There are some certain things that as long as you're catering to that group, the beauty of it was a pretty overall, it was a pretty small number of companies. There are not very many people operating in that space. So
oh,
once you got in with a company, once you got in with a relocation counselor, once you got in with the third parties, nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. So
Mm-mm.
as long as it's working, they would much rather, reach out and say, "Hey, we need 5 one-bedrooms, 2 two-bedrooms. I need a sea level," which usually means fancy,
okay.
high-end, maybe a big splashy house, even though it's one guy living in it because he's
Yeah.
got the sea level per diem and he wants to spend it, So,
Right,
okay,
right.
great. We go out, we source all that, we, deliver it back. What's the budget? You have some pretty rigid criteria in terms of what inspections look like, what we're
Mm.
delivering back in terms of photos and details prior to move in, often around 100 photos. Mark once did the math, and there were over 1,000 data points per move in every
Oh,
single
wow.
time.
Wow.
So, but like most things, if you have the systems, if that's what you're there to do, you just, kind of get up
Right.
and do it day after day.